Howdy YouTube, and welcome to this episode of The Gunman. So this video here is a review and demonstration on the Flex ORE 5150. So it's a electric orbital sander. So there's also a 150, and that's obviously going to be the 3mm orbit. I went for the 5mm obviously, and I would recommend most people go for the 5mm unless you're wanting to use it mainly just for blends and stuff like that, because the smaller the orbit, they're called like a finishing sander, and they're a lot less aggressive, they're a lot slower. And look, personally, I would just say go for the 5 for most people in most applications. If you've already got yourself a 5 and you want a slightly smaller orbit, if you find you're getting pigtails even with the finer grits, well then it's something that you could look at. But personally, a 5 is what most people are going to need. Now I got this one here from the UK, and all I need to do is put my little travel adapter onto it. That was like $5 from Bunnings, and off I go. So I did actually get this one from Spray Guns Direct. I got it shipped out from the UK, and there will actually be a link in the description of where you can get one of these if you are interested. So I actually did quite a lot of research into orbital sanders before I did end up landing on the Flex. So one of the reasons I went for Flex is because of that dust catching system that it had there, and to be honest, as it turns out, it really wasn't that great. I was thinking, oh yeah, cool, I could use that in the workshop and I'm not gonna have to worry about a vacuum cleaner. It's just another thing that I don't have to plug in and clean out. I thought all I'd do is grab that little dust canister and I would be able to knock that out sort of once at the end of every day or every week or whatever it be. But as it turned out, it wasn't really much chop. Like, I mean, it took a little bit of dust off, but it really didn't do that well of a job. So as it turns out, I would recommend getting yourself a vacuum cleaner and a dust vacuum cleaner, because not all vacuum cleaners are the same. I'm actually going to get the Flex dust vacuum cleaner that goes with this sander. So as you saw there, it's not too heavy, you know, considering it is electric. So you've got your electric motor inside that tool, and then you've got that little canister that you put on the back. Again, not that heavy, but the tool itself is about 1.5 kilograms, so not too bad. Obviously, an air sander is going to be quite a lot lighter than all of your electrical sanders because you don't have your electrical motors inside there. But all of that aside, I went for electric this time because I wanted something that I could sort of take home or take to my mates' places on the weekend and use it without a big compressor to power it. So there's some definite advantages of going for an electrical sander. This is my first electrical sander, and being that I went for the good quality one, I would expect it to last for quite some time. Unfortunately, it's actually made in China. I was a little bit surprised and let down. Flex is a German brand, but as I did a little bit of research, and as it turns out, Flex was bought by a big Chinese company, and I was actually expecting a German-made tool. I thought, okay, the parent company might still be Chinese, but when I actually unboxed this, it did actually say made in China on the side. So just be aware of that if you are to go and get yourself one of these. Now, I got the Flex Orbital cordless polisher, and that was actually made in Germany. So yeah, it's just an observation that I made. So you can actually get yourself some quite cheap and okay looking orbital sanders for a fair lot cheaper than this, but none of them are automotive. So this was pretty much actually one of the cheaper automotive electric sanders. So look, there may be some that I haven't seen, but if you want something that's like good quality, then you're going to be spending a fair whack of money because the other ones, they're like 1 to 5mm pads on them. So that's more for like the home spec, so woodworking and building industries. It seems to be they're the cheaper ones. Like you can get all the Makita ones, but they don't actually make them with the 6-inch or 150mm pad, which is the industry standard for the automotive industry. So as I say, like your automotive sanders, they're going to be a little bit more expensive than your building industry ones. So that's something to keep in mind, because you do have to get the pad size right, because pretty much all of your automotive sanding discs will be 150 mil. So it does have a brushless motor, which does help with the power consumption, and apparently it's got a long service life. It's definitely not a cheap tool, so you would hope to get at least a good 4 or 5 years minimum out of it, and that's daily use. And on the other hand, I would be surprised if it wouldn't last at least 5 years. I have actually had a few pneumatic orbital sanders go on me over the years. So the previous sander that this is actually replacing, this is replacing my Chicago pneumatic one. So I actually did a giveaway on that Chicago pneumatic air sander, and that was a great little sander, don't get me wrong. It was nice and fast, and it did the job for probably 3 years, but then it died. It must have been a bearing or something inside that tool. It just died on me. And the previous one before that, I had a Dynabrade. I bought that as an apprentice, and to be honest, it did, technically it lasted for a long time, but it slowed right down. And the same thing, like after 3 years of daily use, it just went really slow. So as I say, technically it did actually still work, but the amount of time it would take you to prep a panel up, it just wasn't worth using, because it would basically cost you money. Like, I mean, technically I'm an employee, but it makes even you as an employee look bad when panels take you 3 times as long to prep up because you're using a slow sander. So that's another good thing about this thing. It's got a nice amount of power behind it, so you can get it cranking up really fast if you need to do some stripping back to bare metal, as you see me doing on this bull bar here. That was pretty sandblasted and rusted, so I had to give it a bit of a tidy up, and yeah, this sander made light work of stripping that back to bare metal. But on the other hand, you probably wouldn't want to be running these things at full noise for very long if you could avoid it, because you could run into some longevity issues. You could end up just wearing it out, and as you can see here, it did actually start getting quite hot, around 50 degrees or 120 Fahrenheit for my American viewers. And this is a vacuum cleaner that I'm going to end up getting. So it's an automatic one that you can, when you turn the tool on, the vacuum cleaner turns itself on. It's actually got like a bit of a delay on it too, so that it runs on for an extra few seconds just to clear the hose, like to clear the hose of dust. So any dust that was left in the hose will go into the vacuum cleaner. So I thought that was pretty cool. So that's definitely something that I'm going to be getting soon. And I've just moved to a new shop, those of you who do not know. So I'll actually be making my own little prep cart. So I'll do a bit of a video on my prep cart once I make it. And that vacuum cleaner and this orbital sander are going to be part of my prep cart. This thing gets a couple of big thumbs up from me. Definitely don't regret getting it. I do believe that it's going to last me quite some time. It does ooze of quality. But one of the first things that I did actually notice with it is the weight. So for those of you who are used to using pneumatic air sanders, coming to this, it will be a little bit more heavy than what you're used to. But as I say, it doesn't really take that long to get the hang of it. Like, it did feel a little bit harder to get into some of those nooks and crannies, and it felt like you didn't have quite as much control, because with your orbital air sanders, all you need to do is sort of like release your grip and that'll start slowing down, whereas with this one here, you've got that on and off button. So that's something that took a little bit to get used to, but it was really only a couple of jobs, and then off you go, and you just sort of get the hang of how to use the tool and the weight. And to be honest, it doesn't leave my hand with, I used to call it buzz hand, but I think the technical term for it is like carpal tunnel syndrome on setting. So what would happen with the vibrations would go up through your arms, and your blood vessels are like starting to close up, and then you would basically lose the feeling from your hand. It'll go all tingly. You could like shut your hand into a fist, and your whole arm would start tingling. So I haven't been getting that with this, and I believe that's partly to do with the anti-vibration system or whatever that they've got in there, whereas I think some of the pneumatic ones don't actually have that. So it's something that I used to notice more so when doing the big jobs. On your average everyday, like standard size job, I didn't really get it that much. But when I'm doing like a full respray and you're spending like 1 or 2 hours with the orbital in your hand, you would actually get that what I call buzz hand. So yeah, if you're in the market for a new orbital sander and you are looking at this one, I would highly recommend getting it. I don't think you will be disappointed. Just be realistic about your expectations of that little dust catcher. It doesn't do a great deal, and as I say, I would recommend looking at a vacuum cleaner. I'd like to say a big thanks to everyone for watching, and if you'd like to support the channel further, you're more than welcome to go over and check out some of the merchandise we've got. My personal favourite is those spray suits, so they're a good quality Colad branded spray suit with the Gunman logo on it. There's also hats, drink coolers, hoodies and t-shirts, so be sure to go over and check out the link in the description if you are interested.